Admiral Yuki Tanaka had prepared her entire life for this moment. She had trained for war. She had studied every battle in human history. She had run 1,000 simulations of first contact with alien life, but nothing had prepared her for what appeared on her screen that morning. The alien fleet was massive. 300 ships hung in the darkness above Earth, like a cloud of metal and death. Each vessel was larger than anything humanity had ever built. The smallest of them could have swallowed an aircraft carrier whole. Tanaka's hands were steady as she gave the order to raise shields and arm all weapons. Around her, the bridge crew moved with quiet efficiency. Fear was there, yes, but so was determination. If humanity was going to die today, they would die fighting. Then the message came. We surrender unconditionally. Earth is now our keeper. Tanaka blinked. She turned to her communications officer. Play that again, the message repeated. The same words, the same meaning. The alien fleet, with enough firepower to turn Earth into ash, was surrendering. To them, without a single shot being fired. Admiral, her tactical officer said slowly, They're powering down their weapons. Tanaka watched her screens in disbelief. One by one, the massive alien ships went dark. Weapon systems offline, shields lowering. They were making themselves completely vulnerable. This is a trick, she said. Ma'am, we're receiving a second transmission. They're requesting permission to land on Earth. They say they are refugees, seeking protection under something called Galactic Covenant Law. 3 hours later, Tanaka stood in the United Nations Emergency Council chamber. World leaders sat in stunned silence as translators confirmed what the aliens were saying. The Vel'Korath, as they called themselves, were surrendering all military assets to humanity. They were placing themselves under human protection. They were asking for nothing except the right to live on Earth. This is unprecedented, the Secretary General said. An alien civilization appears with the power to destroy us. And instead they give up? We must accept, the French ambassador said quickly. This is a gift, a peaceful first contact. It feels wrong, said the American representative. Nobody surrenders when they're winning. Tanaka agreed, but she kept her mouth shut. She was military, not politics. Her job was to protect Earth, and right now, the threat seemed to be dissolving on its own. The vote passed. Earth accepted the Vel'Korath surrender. Within a week, alien ships began landing. The Vel'Korath emerged not as conquerors, but as grateful refugees. They were tall, thin creatures with pale blue skin and large dark eyes that always seemed to be looking for approval. They bowed to every human they met. They thanked local officials for allowing them to breathe Earth's air. They were so humble, so grateful, that many humans felt embarrassed by their earlier fear. Commander David Okonkwo did not feel embarrassed. He felt suspicious. Okonkwo worked in military intelligence. His job was to find threats that others missed, and something about the Vel'Korath bothered him deeply. They were too perfect, too grateful, too practiced. He spent his nights digging through the alien data that the Vel'Korath had generously shared with Earth's governments. Most of it was useless. Cultural histories, art, music. But buried deep in one archive, hidden in a file that had been marked as corrupted, Okonkwo found something interesting. It was a list of names. 17 of them. Each name was a species. And next to each name was a date and a single word. Absorbed, Okonkwo ran the names through the Vel'Korath cultural database. He found references to all 17 species. They had been powerful civilizations once. Some had been older than the Vel'Korath themselves, but they were all gone now, extinct. Their worlds were empty, their people vanished, and every single one of them had accepted the surrender of the Vel'Korath. Okonkwo felt cold sweat run down his back. He kept digging. He found fragments of something called the Burden Protocol. The files were incomplete, damaged, but the pieces he found painted a terrifying picture. The Vel'Korath did not conquer through war, they conquered through submission. By surrendering, they triggered ancient galactic laws that made the victorious species responsible for their care. The winning species became keepers, and keepers had obligations. Okonkwo tried to find more details, but the files were too corrupted. He needed more information. He needed to understand exactly what trap humanity had walked into. The next morning, a delegation arrived from something called the Galactic Council. They were not Velkorath. They were different species, dozens of them, representing a government that spanned thousands of worlds. They came with smiles and congratulations. "Humanity has shown great wisdom," the lead ambassador said. He was a short creature covered in golden fur, with too many teeth in his smile. "Accepting the Velkorath surrender proves that your species is ready to join the galactic community. We're honored." The Secretary General replied, "You should be. Being a keeper is a great responsibility. The Velkorath are now under your protection. Their welfare is your duty. The Galactic Covenant is very clear on the obligations of a keeper species." Okonkwo was watching from the back of the room. He saw something in the ambassador's eyes. Something cold. Something knowing. "What obligations exactly?" he asked, stepping forward. The ambassador's smile flickered. "The details will be provided, of course. But in simple terms, you must care for the Velkorath. Feed them. House them. Protect them. They are your responsibility now. And if we don't, then you would be in violation of Galactic Covenant. The penalties are severe." After the delegation left, Okonkwo approached Admiral Tanaka. He showed her everything he had found. The list of dead species, the fragments of the burden protocol, the look in the ambassador's eyes. Tanaka listened in silence. When Okonkwo finished, she stared out the window at the city below. Velkorath were everywhere now. Walking the streets, living in hastily built housing, breeding. Their numbers were growing every day. "They conquered us without firing a shot," Tanaka said quietly. "Yes, ma'am. I believe they did. And the galaxy is watching, waiting. They've seen this before, 17 times before." Tanaka turned away from the window. Her face was hard, her eyes cold. "Then, we need to find a way out. A way no other species has found. The Covenant seems absolute. Every species that accepted surrender was bound by it. Then, we need to do something no other species has done." Tanaka's jaw tightened. "We need to find a way to refuse." Outside, more Velkorath ships were landing. And in their dark eyes, behind all that false gratitude, Okonkwo could almost see them smiling. 6 months passed, and Earth began to break. Commander David Okonkwo stood in the middle of what had once been a city park. Now it was a Velkorath housing district. Thousands of the tall, pale aliens lived here in buildings that human workers had been forced to construct. The Velkorath did not build. They did not farm. They did not work. They simply existed. And they expected humanity to provide for them. That was the Covenant. That was the trap. Okonkwo had finally obtained the complete text of the Galactic Covenant. A sympathetic alien trader had sold it to him for a price that would have bought a small country. The document was ancient, written in a language older than human civilization. But translators had done their work, and now humanity understood exactly what they had agreed to. A keeper species must provide food, shelter, and medical care for all surrendered populations. A keeper species cannot deny any reasonable request for resources. A keeper species cannot wage war or expand beyond their current territory while under keeper obligations. A keeper species that fails in these duties will face galactic sanction, up to and including military intervention. The Velkorath had designed these rules. They had spent thousands of years making them galactic law. And now those rules were strangling humanity like a slow poison. "The numbers don't work," the Secretary General said at the emergency meeting. Her face was gray with exhaustion. When they arrived, there were 2 million Velkorath. Now there are 8 million. By next year, there will be 20 million. They breed faster than we can build housing, and they're doing it deliberately, Okonkwo added. He had been promoted to lead the intelligence task force studying the Velkorath. Their reproductive cycle can be controlled. They're choosing to have more children. Choosing to increase the burden. Can we limit their population? Under the Covenant, that would be considered harm to a surrendered species. The Galactic Council would intervene. Then what options do we have? Silence. Heavy, terrible silence. Admiral Tanaka broke it. I've been studying the 17 species that fell to this trap before us. They all followed the same pattern. They accepted the surrender. They tried to meet the obligations. They exhausted their resources. They collapsed. And when they collapsed, the Vel'Korath absorbed whatever was left. Absorbed? The Vel'Korath don't just drain species. They replace them. Once a keeper species becomes too weak to function, the Vel'Korath claim their worlds as compensation for suffering under inadequate care. It's all legal under the Covenant. The Secretary General put her head in her hands. So we lose either way. We either break ourselves trying to care for them, or we violate the Covenant and face galactic military action. That's how the trap works, Okonkwo said. It's perfect. No violence needed. Just patience and paperwork. Outside the meeting room, Earth continued to struggle. Farms that should have fed humans were now feeding Vel'Korath. Factories that should have built human technology were building Vel'Korath housing. Human workers were being pushed out of jobs to make room for Vel'Korath needs. And the Vel'Korath themselves walked through human cities with those dark, grateful eyes. Always thanking, always bowing, always asking for more. Okonkwo requested a meeting with the Vel'Korath Elder Council. He wanted to understand. He wanted to see if there was any way to negotiate, to find common ground, to change what was happening. The meeting took place in a converted stadium that now served as Vel'Korath administrative headquarters. The elders were ancient creatures. Their blue skin faded to gray, their movements slow and careful. The leader among them was called Vorthani. She had lived for over 1,000 years. She had seen a dozen species fall to the burden protocol. "You are troubled, Commander Okonkwo," Vorthani said. Her voice was soft and kind. That was the worst part. She sounded so sincere. "Please, tell us how we can help." "You can stop breeding," Okonkwo said bluntly. "You can contribute to our society instead of draining it. You can release us from these obligations." Vorthani's expression did not change. "We cannot control our biology, Commander. As for contributing, we are a peaceful species. We do not have skills suited to labor, and the obligations you speak of are not ours to release. They are galactic law. You created that law. We helped shape it, yes, to protect surrendered species from abuse. Surely you do not object to protecting the helpless?" Okonkwo leaned forward. "I've seen the records. 17 civilizations. All dead. All absorbed by your kind after they collapsed under the burden of caring for you." Vorthani smiled. It was a gentle smile, almost sad. Those species were not strong enough. They could not bear the weight of compassion. Perhaps humanity will be different. Perhaps you will be the first to truly embrace your role as keepers. And if we don't, then you will fail, as others have failed. And we will survive, as we have always survived. This is the natural order. Commander, the strong serve. The patient inherit. Okonkwo returned to Admiral Tanaka with cold rage burning in his chest. They know exactly what they're doing. They've perfected this over thousands of years. And they're absolutely certain we'll fall like all the others. Tanaka was standing at a window, watching Vel'Korath walk freely through what had been a human neighborhood. The Galactic Council sent another message today. They're concerned about reports of human resentment toward the Vel'Korath. They've warned us that any mistreatment will result in sanctions, so we can't fight them, we can't refuse them, and we can't even complain about them. That's the trap. That's why no one has escaped it. Okonkwo sat down heavily. There has to be something. Some weakness in the Covenant. Some way out. Tanaka turned to face him. There was something new in her eyes. Something that might have been hope, or might have been madness. I've been thinking about that. The Covenant binds keeper species. It creates obligations for those who accept surrender. Yes, but what if we don't accept? We already accepted. Months ago. We accepted their surrender under human law. But what if we reject it under galactic law? What if we declare that we never agreed to be keepers? What if we simply refuse the role they've forced on us? Okonkwo frowned. The Council would never accept that. Probably not. But here's the thing, Commander. The Covenant is built on one assumption. It assumes that every species, when offered surrender, will take it. Because what kind of monster attacks an enemy that has surrendered? A human kind of monster? Tanaka smiled grimly. Every species in the galaxy has evolved past warfare. They see violence as primitive, unthinkable. The Velkorath count on that. Their entire strategy depends on civilized species being too civilized to fight a kneeling opponent. You're suggesting we declare war on a species that has surrendered to us. I'm suggesting we become uncivilized. I'm suggesting we do what no galactic species has ever done. Tanaka's voice hardened. We reject their surrender. We refuse to be keepers. And if they won't leave peacefully, we make them leave by force. The galaxy will call us monsters. Let them. Better to be a living monster than a dead saint. Okonkwo thought about it. He thought about the 17 dead species. He thought about Earth's struggling economy. He thought about Vorthani's gentle, patient smile. When do we start? Tanaka picked up her communicator. Right now. Set up a meeting with the UN Security Council. Full emergency session. What should I tell them? Tell them we're going to do something unprecedented. Something terrible. Something human. She paused. Tell them we're going to reject their surrender and declare war. The Galactic Council chamber was a massive dome floating in space, positioned at the exact center of known civilization. 10,000 species had seats here. 10,000 flags hung from the curved ceiling. 10,000 ambassadors watched as the human delegation entered. Dr. Elena Vasquez led the way. She was small for a human, with gray hair and tired eyes. She had spent 30 years as a diplomat, negotiating treaties that had prevented wars. Now she was here to start one. The council fell silent as she approached the speaking platform. The Velkorath delegation sat in the front row. Vorthani was there. Her ancient face calm and confident. She knew why the humans were here. She had seen this moment before, with other species. They always came to beg, to plead for mercy, to ask for more time. They always failed. The representative from Earth may speak, the council president announced. Vasquez stepped up to the platform. She looked out at the assembled aliens. Thousands of eyes watched her. Some curious, some pitying, some already calculating how to divide Earth's remains. 6 months ago, Vasquez began. The Velkorath arrived in our system with a fleet powerful enough to destroy our world. They did not attack. Instead, they surrendered. They claimed refugee status. They invoked the Galactic Covenant and made us their keepers. Murmurs of approval rippled through the chamber. This was how civilization worked. This was proper. We accepted. Vasquez continued. We thought we were showing mercy. We thought we were being civilized. She paused. We were wrong. The murmurs stopped. The Velkorath did not come to us as refugees. They came as conquerors. Their weapon is not violence. Their weapon is surrender itself. They have used this weapon against 17 species before us. Every one of those species is now extinct. This is outrageous, the Velkorath ambassador interrupted. We are a peaceful people. We do not conquer. You don't need to, Vasquez replied calmly. You simply wait. You breed. You consume. You let the Covenant do your killing for you. And when your victims collapse under the weight of caring for you, you absorb what remains and move on to the next target. The chamber erupted. Ambassadors shouted. Accusations flew. The president called for order again and again. When silence finally returned, Vasquez spoke again. We have evidence. Records from the Velkorath's own archives. A list of 17 species they have consumed. A document called the Burden Protocol that describes their strategy in detail. She transmitted the files to every ambassador's terminal. The evidence was clear. The pattern was undeniable. This changes nothing, the council president said slowly. The Velkorath surrendered. You accepted. The covenant is binding. If you fail in your keeper duties, you will face sanctions. I understand, Vasquez said. That is why I am here today, to make an announcement. She straightened her back. Her voice rang through the chamber. On behalf of the United Nations of Earth, I hereby reject the Velkorath surrender. We do not accept their submission. We do not recognize ourselves as keepers. We refuse all obligations under the Galactic Covenant. Silence. Complete, shocked silence. Furthermore, Vasquez continued, we formally declare a state of war between humanity and the Velkorath Dominion. Any Velkorath remaining in human territory in 48 hours will be treated as enemy combatants. The Velkorath ambassador rose to his feet. His face was pale with shock. You cannot do this. The Covenant forbids aggression against surrendered species. We did not accept your surrender. Vasquez replied. Therefore, you are not a surrendered species. You are an enemy that refused to fight. That is your problem, not ours. This is barbarism, perhaps, but barbarism has one advantage over your civilized conquest. It's honest about what it is. The council president tried to restore order. Earth cannot simply reject binding galactic law. The covenant exists to protect the weak. If you violate it, we will be forced to intervene. Vasquez looked directly at him. Then intervene. Send your fleets. Enforce your law. But understand this. We are not the other species you have watched fall. We did not evolve past war. We did not forget how to fight, and we will not kneel to a trap disguised as mercy. You would fight the entire galaxy? If we must. Vasquez smiled grimly. We've been alone before. We survived. And we learned something in those long years of isolation. Something the galaxy seems to have forgotten. What? That sometimes, the most dangerous thing in the universe is not the species with the biggest weapons, it's the species with nothing left to lose. She turned and walked out of the chamber. Her delegation followed. Behind them, chaos erupted. Back on Earth, Admiral Tanaka received Vasquez's signal. The speech had gone as planned. Now came the hard part. Broadcast to all Velkorath populations, Tanaka ordered. They have 48 hours to leave Earth. Any who remain will be considered hostile. Ma'am, her communications officer said nervously, they don't have ships. Most of them came down in landing craft that were designed for one-way trips. Then they'd better figure something out, because in 48 hours, we stop asking nicely. The broadcast went out. Across Earth, Velkorath communities received the message. Panic spread. For 10,000 years, surrender had been their only strategy. They had evolved away their aggression, their independence, their ability to survive without a host species. They had made themselves helpless on purpose, knowing that civilized species would always protect the helpless. But humanity was not playing by civilized rules. Vorthani requested an emergency meeting with Tanaka. The ancient Velkorath leader looked, for the first time, afraid. You cannot do this, Vorthani said. Our people will die. We have no way to leave. We have no way to survive on our own. That sounds like your problem, Tanaka replied. We surrendered to you, and we rejected your surrender. You're not refugees anymore. You're invaders who refuse to fight. And we deal with invaders the same way every human civilization has dealt with them throughout history. The galaxy will stop you. They will send fleets. They will enforce the covenant. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But here's what I know for certain. Tanaka leaned forward. Right now, at this exact moment, the galaxy is watching. They're watching a species that has never been resisted finally face real opposition. They're watching your invincible strategy fail. Well, we are not invincible. We are peaceful. We are civilized. No, you're parasites. You've just been very good at making your hosts feel guilty about calling you that. Tanaka stood. 48 hours, Elder. I suggest you use them wisely. As Vorthani left, her legs trembling beneath her, she passed Commander Okonkwo in the hallway. He saw the fear in her eyes. For a moment, he almost felt sorry for her. Then he remembered the 17 dead species, the billions who had died under the weight of Velkorath mercy, the trap that had been set for humanity. He felt nothing but cold satisfaction. The clock was ticking, and for the first time in 10,000 years, the Velkorath were the ones who were afraid. The 48 hours passed. Some Velkorath managed to leave. Ships were cobbled together from landing craft. The Galactic Council sent emergency transports for those who could reach designated pickup points. But millions remained on Earth. Millions who had nowhere to go. Millions who had never imagined they would need to. Admiral Tanaka kept her word. Human military forces did not attack the Velkorath. There was no violence. No massacre. No bloodshed. That would have given the galaxy an excuse to intervene. Instead, humanity did something worse. They simply stopped caring. Food shipments to Velkorath districts ended. Power was cut. Water supplies were rerouted. The housing that humans had built for Velkorath was reclaimed. Medical services were withdrawn. Overnight, 10 million Velkorath went from protected refugees to abandoned populations. Commander Okonkwo walked through what had been a Velkorath district 3 days after the deadline. The buildings were still standing, but they were empty of supplies. Velkorath sat in the streets, staring at nothing. They had not eaten in 2 days. They did not know how to find food on their own. They had never needed to. "This feels cruel," Okonkwo said to the officer beside him. "It is cruel," the officer replied. "But is it more cruel than what they did? They drained 17 civilizations to death. Billions of people, entire species. They just did it slowly, with smiles on their faces." Okonkwo had no answer to that. The Galactic Council, as expected, responded with outrage. A peacekeeping fleet of 300 ships was dispatched to Earth's system. They came with warnings and demands. Humanity must restore keeper obligations. Humanity must care for the Velkorath. Humanity must obey the Covenant. Admiral Tanaka met them at the edge of the solar system. "Turn back," she broadcast. "This is an internal human matter. Your intervention is not welcome. You are violating galactic law." The Council Fleet Commander replied, "We are authorized to use force if necessary. Then use it. But understand what you'll be starting. You cannot defeat us. Your technology is primitive. Your fleet is small." "That's true," Tanaka admitted. "But here's what you don't know. For the past 6 months, while you thought we were breaking under the Velkorath burden, we were also preparing. We studied your ships. We found weaknesses. We built weapons you've never seen, because your civilized species stopped innovating in warfare thousands of years ago. You're bluffing. Maybe. Or maybe I'm the admiral of a species that spent its entire history fighting itself. A species that turned war into an art form. A species that never evolved past violence because violence kept us alive." Tanaka leaned forward in her command chair. "Do you really want to find out which one it is?" The Council fleet held position. Minutes passed. Then hours. Then days. They did not advance. Back on Earth, the Velkorath situation was growing desperate. Without support, they were dying. Not quickly, but steadily. Their bodies were not designed for hardship. Their minds were not prepared for survival. 10,000 years of depending on host species had left them helpless. But something unexpected began to happen. A young Velkorath named Kethra came to Commander Okonkwo's office. She was different from the others. Her eyes were not filled with that practiced gratitude. They were filled with something else. Determination. And shame. "I want to help," Kethra said. "Help with what?" "Help end this. Help my people survive. Really survive. Not as parasites. As something else." Okonkwo studied her carefully. "Why should I trust you?" "You shouldn't. But you should listen." Kethra sat down without being invited. "I'm part of a group, young Velkorath. We've watched our elders play this game for generations. We've seen what it costs. Not just your species. Ours. Your species seems to benefit quite well. Do we?" Kethra's voice was bitter. We can't build. We can't create. We can't survive on our own. We've turned ourselves into the most pathetic creatures in the galaxy. We're not conquerors. We're beggars with a good strategy. And I'm sick of it. Okonkwo leaned back. What exactly are you proposing? A real surrender. Not the trap kind. A true submission. We'll work. We'll contribute. We'll become part of your society instead of draining it. In exchange, you let us stay. You teach us how to be different. And how many of your people feel this way? Enough. The young ones. The ones who remember what our species used to be before the burden protocol. Before we forgot how to stand on our own feet. Okonkwo brought Kethra to Admiral Tanaka. The Admiral listened in silence as the young Vel'Korath repeated her proposal. Your elders will never accept this, Tanaka said finally. My elders are dying. Their way is dying with them. But some of us want to live. Actually live. Not just survive off someone else's suffering. Why should we believe you? Kethra met Tanaka's eyes. Because I'm here. Alone. Asking for a chance instead of demanding one. That's never happened in Vel'Korath history. We've always had the power of surrender behind us. Now, we have nothing. And some of us are discovering that nothing can be a beginning. Tanaka turned to the window. Outside, Vel'Korath were visible in the distance. Thin, hungry, lost. A species that had forgotten how to exist without a host. We can't solve their problem for them, Tanaka said slowly. If we do, we become keepers again. Just under a different name. Quote, I know, Kethra replied. That's why I'm not asking you to save us. I'm asking you to let us save ourselves. Give us land. Give us tools. Give us the chance to fail or succeed on our own. No obligations, no covenant, just an opportunity. And if you fail, then we fail. And that will be our fault, not yours. That's the difference between what I'm asking and what my elders demanded. Responsibility. Real responsibility. For ourselves. Okonkwo watched the exchange with growing surprise. This was not what he had expected. This was not how Vel'Korath were supposed to behave. Maybe that was the point. Tanaka made her decision. Bring me a list of every Vel'Korath who shares your views. Everyone who's willing to work. To contribute. To earn their place. We'll set up a trial program. Isolated territory. Basic resources. Supervision. If your people can prove they mean what they say, we'll talk about next steps. And my elders, the ones who won't change, they have a choice. Accept the new arrangement, or leave. The Galactic Council is still waiting at the edge of our system. I'm sure they'd be happy to take in a few million traditional Vel'Korath. Kethra stood. For the first time, there was something like hope in her eyes. Thank you, Admiral. You won't regret this. I hope not. Because if this is another trick, if this is just a new version of the same trap, we won't be merciful a second time. It's not a trick, it's a beginning. Maybe the first real beginning my species has had in 10,000 years. After Kethra left, Okonkwo turned to Tanaka. I believe she wants something different. Whether she can achieve it, whether her people can actually change, that I don't know. But I know this. If we don't give them the chance, we're no better than they were. We'd be crushing them without offering any alternative. That sounds almost merciful. Tanaka smiled grimly. It is merciful. But it's our kind of mercy. The kind that demands something in return. The kind that comes with expectations. The kind that builds, instead of destroys. Outside, the standoff continued. The Galactic Council fleet waited. The Vel'Korath waited. The whole galaxy waited. And humanity, for the first time since the alien ships arrived, was not waiting. They were building something new. The High Matriarch Vorthani came to Geneva on a cold winter morning. She came alone, without guards or advisors. She came because she had no other choice. The meeting took place in a small room with simple furniture. No ceremony, No protocol. Just the ancient Vel'Korath leader sitting across from Admiral Tanaka and Commander Okonkwo. Vordani looked different now. Thinner, older, afraid in a way she had never been before. "I am not here to surrender," Vordani said quietly. "I know that word means nothing to your species anymore." "Then why are you here?" Tanaka asked. "To understand. To ask questions I should have asked 10,000 years ago." Vordani folded her thin hands on the table. "Why did you refuse? Every other species accepted. Every one. What made you different?" Tanaka considered the question. "Because we recognize the trap. Because we've seen versions of it before. In our own history. Gifts that become chains. Mercy that becomes control. We've learned to be suspicious of easy surrenders, but the cost of refusing was so high. You risked galactic war. You let my people suffer. You chose violence over peace. We chose survival over comfortable death," Okonkwo said. "There's a difference." Vordani turned her dark eyes to him. "The young one, Kethra. She speaks of a different path. A true integration. My advisors tell me it cannot work, that the Vel'Korath cannot change, that we have evolved beyond the capacity for independence. What do you think?" The matriarch was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was heavy with something that might have been regret. "I think we chose this path so long ago that we forgot we ever had another option. The burden protocol was created because we were weak. We could not compete with stronger species. So we found a way to make our weakness into a weapon. It worked," Tanaka acknowledged. "For 10,000 years. Yes. But at what cost?" Vordani looked at her hands. "We cannot create art anymore. We cannot solve problems. We cannot even feed ourselves. We turned ourselves into the most dependent species in the galaxy and called it victory. Now I look at Kethra and her followers, and I see something we lost. Fire, ambition, pride. You could have that again, could we?" The matriarch looked up. "Your people are teaching the young ones to farm, to build, to work with their hands. My advisors call it degrading. But I have watched them. They are not degraded, they are proud. For the first time in millennia, Vel'Korath are proud of something they built themselves." Tanaka leaned forward. "Then you have a choice, matriarch. The same choice Kethra offered. Join the new path or hold on to the old one. But understand this. The old path ends here. We will not be your hosts. We will not be anyone's hosts. And I suspect, after what the galaxy has seen, no other species will accept your surrender again either. The burden protocol is dead. You killed it the moment you tried to use it on a species that wouldn't play along. We just made it obvious." Quote, Vordani sat in silence for several minutes. The humans waited. They had learned patience in these long months. They could wait longer. Finally, the matriarch spoke. "What would integration look like? Truly look like?" "Truly look like?" Tanaka nodded to Okonkwo. He pulled out a document. 5 years of supervised transition. Your people learn skills. They contribute to our society. They follow our laws. In return, they receive citizenship. Real citizenship. With rights and responsibilities. No more covenant. No more keeper obligations. Just neighbors who happen to be different species. And those who refuse, the elders who cannot change, the Galactic Council is still willing to accept Vel'Korath refugees. Those who want to continue the old ways can leave. We won't stop them. They will find no hosts, Vordani said sadly. No species will accept their surrender now. You have made the entire galaxy suspicious of our mercy. Good, Tanaka replied. Your mercy was never mercy. It was conquest by another name. Now it's exposed for what it always was. The matriarch closed her eyes. When she opened them, there was something new in her expression. Acceptance, perhaps. Or the beginning of it. I will speak with my people. The old ones will resist. But the young ones. She paused. The young ones are already building things. Learning things. becoming something we have not been in 10,000 years. Perhaps it is time for the old ones to step aside. She stood slowly. At the door, she turned back. Your species confuses me, Admiral. You are violent and peaceful, cruel and merciful. You reject surrender, but offer salvation. I have lived 1,000 years, and I do not understand you. We don't understand ourselves most of the time, Tanaka admitted. But we keep trying. Maybe that's the difference. The years passed. The transition was not easy. Many old Velkorath could not adapt. They left Earth on Galactic Council ships, searching for hosts who no longer existed. Some died. Some simply faded away, unable to survive in a galaxy that no longer accepted their surrender. But the young ones thrived. Kethra became the first Velkorath to complete the integration program. She earned citizenship through work in agriculture, helping to restore the farmland that her people had once drained. She learned to build. She learned to create. She learned what pride felt like. Others followed. Thousands at first, then hundreds of thousands. Within a decade, there was a generation of Velkorath who had never known the burden protocol. They worked in human factories. They served in human military units. They built families and communities based on contribution rather than consumption. The galaxy watched in disbelief. The Velkorath, the parasites who had consumed 17 civilizations, were becoming productive members of human society. Not hosts and burdens. Partners. Neighbors. Friends. It was unprecedented. It was impossible, and yet it was happening. 10 years after the day humanity declared war on Mercy, Captain Kethra stood on the bridge of the UNS Resolution. She wore the uniform of Earth's combined fleet. She had earned every rank, every commendation, every badge, through her own effort. The ship was patrolling the outer rim of human space when they detected an anomaly. Another species, one humanity had never encountered, was approaching a small human colony world. Their fleet was massive, their weapons were powerful, and they were broadcasting a message. We surrender unconditionally. We seek only refuge. We place ourselves under your protection. The human captain of the Resolution turned to Kethra. Captain, you know this strategy better than anyone. What do you advise? Kethra stared at the alien ships. She saw her own people in them. She saw the trap they were setting. She saw the endless cycle of parasitism and collapse that had consumed half the galaxy. Open a channel, she said. The communication link crackled to life. The alien commander appeared on screen, his eyes full of practiced humility. Do not, Kethra said, her voice cold and clear. Whatever you are planning, do not. I am Velkorath. I know exactly what you are attempting, and I am here to tell you that it will not work. We only seek peace. We only seek refuge. You seek hosts. You seek victims. But you have found something else. Kethra leaned toward the screen. You have found a species that does not play by the old rules. A species that will not accept your surrender. A species that taught my people, after 10,000 years of parasitism, how to stand on our own feet. This is uncivilized. No. This is human. And if you are wise, you will turn around and find another way to survive. A real way. A way that does not depend on draining others. The alien commander stared at her. Behind him, his bridge crew shifted nervously. And if we refuse? Kethra smiled. It was not the old Velkorath smile of false gratitude. It was something harder. Something earned. Then you will learn the same lesson we learned. The hard way. The alien fleet turned and left. Word spread across the galaxy. The burden protocol was dead, and the species that had killed it was not going anywhere. In her quarters that night, Kethra looked out at the stars. She thought about her ancestors, who had chosen parasitism over pride. She thought about the humans, who had refused to be victims. She thought about the future, bright and uncertain and finally, truly, her own. The galaxy had believed that civilization meant avoiding war at any cost. Humanity had taught them a different lesson. True peace was not the inability to fight, it was the choice not to. And the strength to make that choice matter. The stars burned on, infinite and eternal. And among them, humanity and their unlikely Velkorath allies continued forward, not as hosts and burdens, not as conquerors and conquered, but as equals, as builders, as the species that had refused to kneel, and in doing so, had shown the galaxy what standing truly meant.